All right, hey, thank you all for coming. So just for the few folks who might be intimidated that we will be talking through thousands of stories, no, we won't. Though we do have thousands of stories, our intent today is we have 5 unique stories that we have chosen that sort of represent some of the common themes that we see with regards to customers who have seen success making this transition. So we'll talk about those 5. We'll go deeper and we'll sort of try to see what was their scenario, what did they make, what are the changes they made, and what were the benefits they saw. So that being said, I'm Vijay Gopalakrishnan. I'm a product marketing manager for the modern data warehousing environment. We have Mark Cromer with me. Mark's a Cyprian program manager, excuse me, with Azure Data Factory. And we have Rick Tam Daniels from our partner Informatica. So I'll do 2 cases. We'll have Mark do 2. And then we'll have Rick talk about migration story. All right. So like I said, agenda, we'll quickly go through. How many of you know what modern data warehousing is? OK. Yeah. Great. So we'll just do a quick introduction, look at a quick schematic of modern data warehousing, what are the different components, and what are the benefits of modern data warehousing. After that, we'll start with ABI, Anheuser-Busch, and their story on how they had siloed data and saw success moving from their on-prem system to Azure. We'll then take a second story, which is an interesting case about a retail group in Brazil, an electronics retail group, and how they leveraged Azure to use some predictive analysis. And it's an interesting story. I'll not divulge enough right away. After that, we'll have Mark talk about RB, one of the from the healthcare industry, and also Lume. They're from the healthcare, aren't they, Matt?
RB is consumer goods, and Lumedex, he turned me off. And Lumedex is from healthcare.
OK, thank you. And then lastly, we'll have Rick talk about Kelly Services, the people management group, and how they migrated from on-prem onto the modern data warehousing scenario. With that being said, what we have on board is the modern data warehousing schematic. So what is modern data warehousing? Theoretically, we've had a lot of relational data that we chug in. Think of the airline industry, for example. There's a lot of relational data. There's a lot of analysis as to how many seats are left in an aircraft, what's the consumption rate, what are the different routes that get used. That's been the traditional path. But going forward, there's also a lot of data with regards to tweets, media. How do they use that data, unstructured data? That's clearly not beautified into columns and rows. How do they use that data to further run analysis? And the intent here is to be able to consume any kind of data, structured or unstructured data, and be able to process all those using your SQL data warehouse. So this is the solution path that Azure offers, where, as you can see, there are different components. And our thought here is we want to make sure we empower you with all the tools so that you can take any kind of data and use your SQL data warehouse to run analysis and draw meaningful insights. OK, we'll down to the customer success stories. So I said ABI, Anheuser-Busch, one of the biggest global brewers. They have 500 different brands operating in more than 50 countries. They also, for their own convenience, they have the company divided into 6 zones, and each manages its own IT. And they also had 16 data centers across the globe. So a lot of data, different groups. There was a lot of disconnect between them, a lot of redundant research. So their pain point was that they had several data silos, and it was slowing down their analytics process. Excuse me. And also, they had an existing legacy on-prem system that we're using for ETL and wasn't meeting their needs. And as with on-prem systems, it turned out to be expensive to upgrade. So when we first approached them, we asked them what their needs were, right? So the primary need was consolidating all their data into a single source of truth. How do they consolidate the data from these 16 data centers into one single data source so that they can run analysis, they can draw meaningful insights? Second, they were looking to get some robust transformation tools. Said that on-prem system didn't work. And more importantly, something that was unique to the SQL DW was they wanted a DW that they could scale. So their workload was not flat, it was spiky, and they essentially did not want to pay for services that they were not using. So they want some system that could scale up and down based on their needs. So what was our solution to them? So as you can see, they were now using Azure Data Factory with two storages. There's a data lake and a blob storage. They use HD Insight. They are in the process of looking at Databricks as a replacement. And so there's two paths there, as you can see. The first one is they use SQL Data Warehouse and Power BI to use their existing data and draw some meaningful insights from their analysis. They're trying to improvise on their process. The second one is also a data science process. What they're doing is one important project is they are the world's largest barley consumers. And so they're working with the farmers to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to ensure that they get the best quality barley, and also that they help the farmers with their essentially to ensure that they have the right conditions and they can get the best barley. So this is a unique project that they were running. This was the project that they kicked off, and it's sort of been pretty successful. So as we said, what was the takeaway for them? So they had optimized performance after they were able to consolidate their data silos, a drop in process time because now they were not having to deal with 16 data centers, but it was a single source of truth. And more importantly, as we said, given the nature of their workload, the cost savings was significant because they're using on-demand systems. They could scale up or scale down as needed, and they did see significant cost savings. So that being said, I will get to the next one, which is Fast. So Fast Shop is an Sao Paulo-based consumer electronics store. It's a chain of stores in Brazil. And they have a unique operating model where, as a customer, you can go to their store and you can actually negotiate the price with them. So there's no set price. You do have the ability to negotiate with them. The way it worked was their store managers would work with their suppliers, determine pricing, and set them manually. So they did not have an automated process to do it. They were dealing with more than 5,000 plus SKUs, so almost next to impossible to do it. So what they were doing was they were picking on the high sale items, which the sales managers would work on with their suppliers. And for the other products, it was up to the stores to figure out what they wanted to do. All was good until the market suffered the economic decline in 2015. And they started noticing that sales was going down, profits were going down, and they went into panic mode. What do we do? So they reached out to us, and they said, we want to run some predictive analysis. They did some POCs, and they said, we're looking to do some predictive analysis. How do we increase our profit margins? How can we run some AI ML-based or more analysis to understand how do the different factors affect profit? And as with several other success stories, they had an existing on-prem system that wasn't working, so they were wanting to move their workload to the cloud. So what we did here was they started using Power BI, which was their entry into the MDW world. And once they started using Power BI, they saw that the whole MDW environment is very closely, it's tightly integrated. So they also started using SQL DW and Databricks to run the analysis. Databricks, now they use it for predictive analysis. So including, they've started looking into whether each store has a unique analytical model that they run. And the beauty is it's been simplified to a point where the store managers can run it by themselves. They don't need a data scientist to do it. They have models that they've created, so it's very easy for them now in Power BI to look at sensitivity curves. So if I had a 10% drop, how does this work? Or if the temperature drops at 5 degrees, how is that going to affect the sales of my air conditioning? So they started seeing some significant results there. And they also did see reduced costs by moving to the cloud. They essentially they stopped using their on-prem system, and it's all on the cloud now. Any questions so far? Love it. So I'll pass it on to Mark, who will talk about the next two cases. No, it's still me.
That might be the other one. Oh, and this is on. Oh, it seems like it's a little. Is this working?
I think they can hear.
I don't even need. I can talk loud. So unless you're recording.
It's a question. How do you?
Oh yeah, a little too. Hey, welcome to the Las Vegas. I feel like I should be an MC at a show. Okay, I'll leave it on. Yeah, I'm good. Hold on. Okay, thanks, Vijay. So as Vijay said, I'm Mark, and I am from the Azure Data Factory product team. So I'm a program manager. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper on some of these things that Vijay was touching on earlier from a Azure Data Factory perspective. I feel like I'm on what's the Voice. I feel like I'm on The Voice. Anyway, so Azure Data Factory. Who's familiar with the Azure Data Factory here in the room? Oh wow, awesome, fantastic. So specific to the patterns and solutions we're talking about today, Azure Data Factory provides within that modern data warehouse scenario, that provides the data integration in the cloud. So Azure Data Factory is the Azure Cloud Platform as a Service, fully managed data integration service. And these are the 4 pillars that we focus on in the product team to provide the end-to-end modern data warehouse. We focus on being productive. So I'll show a few screens in a second of what the UI looks like. So you essentially interact with Data Factory by designing your flows, you design your pipelines, and it's all visual, it's all within the browser. And then it's codeless, so the data movements and also the transformations that we're building into Data Factory, the idea is that you don't have to be a coder to do these. You should just worry about building the orchestration of loading the data warehouse is what we want you to focus on. In hybrid, we're going to talk a lot today also about a lot of these customers that we're talking about are migrating, lifting and shifting, modernizing their data warehouse from on-prem EDWs and data warehouses to the cloud, which is a big part of the modern data warehouse story. And so Data Factory has hybrid connectors that can connect into your on-prem SQL Server, Oracle, so on and so forth. And the second bullet on the second swim lane there under lift and shift your SSIS package is a very popular use of Azure Data Factory, is to get those into the cloud first and then build a platform as a service pipeline from that. So very scalable. We have back-end services that ingest data at scale. You're going to see some examples of that from these customers. Also, the scale is gained from the platforms that we use. So we allow you to transform data and to load data into SQL DW, SQL DB, HD Insight, many different places. And so those are fully scalable platforms. And then we leverage things like the Azure Key Vault for storing your credentials. So you can just give us the secret code, and then you can keep your credentials stored in Azure Key Vault. So Azure Data Factory is a very secure and trusted data integration tool. So let's go back to the modern data warehouse scenario. In that solution that was provided on the slide earlier by VJ, this kind of dives a little bit deeper into that, at least from a data factory perspective. Data factory would be the tool that orchestrates that entire process. It takes your data, and on the left-hand side, the key aspect, another key aspect to modern data warehouse, besides being cloud-born, is also having data varying shapes and sizes and speeds. And Data Factory has the ability to consume all that. And so you consume that into Azure through Data Factory, and then the very common pattern is to stage that somewhere. You could go directly into a database, but the more common thing to do in modern data warehouse world is to stage it. And the reason for that is because you could be receiving data that has one shape today and a different shape tomorrow. And so a lot of times you can't just put that into a relational model, right? Because that doesn't support that. So you have to do some normalizing of that data. And you do that through these systems, and then you load that into a data mart. So in the third, the middle section, the prep and train, is where the execution engines come into play. And very commonly, you're going to see in the scenarios that we're talking about today, is that Spark is a very commonly used engine for those transformations. So that could be Azure Databricks, that could be HD Insight. We have Polybase on there too. Polybase is more of a loading tool, I think. But I think we have that in there just because, you know, at some point you've got to get that data into SQL Data Warehouse very quickly. And Polybase is your bulk loading, fast loading mechanism for that. But the transformation and the prepping of that data could also just occur in SQL. You could just write stored procs or just use SQL to prep that data in Data Factory as well. And then at the end on the right-hand side is where all the goodness comes. That's where you load up your SQL Data Warehouse. And then you provide that data through queries and models out to your users. And that's where the businesses start to change the game and start to impact the way they do business. I missed that little animation thing there. Look at that. Okay. So what does that look like in Data Factory? Here's an example of a pipeline. This is a modern data warehouse pipeline right here. And what this is doing is a couple of different things. And you can get some flavor for all the different aspects of what Data Factory does to enable this sort of a pattern. And at the top, we start by loading data from many different sources. And we're getting data from REST APIs. We're getting data from files. We're getting data from databases. And then we bring those together and we load them into, in this case, I don't think it shows on here, but we're loading those into Blob Store, a very inexpensive way to just kind of land data in a lake. And then we're doing some aggregations. And so the aggregations in this case are happening in two different ways. You have an aggregate running on a Databricks notebook, and you have an aggregate running as a T-SQL stored proc within SQL DW. So, you know, whatever way you like to do it, we support it in Data Factory. We also support visual data flows where you can transform data on Databricks without writing any code at all within a Data Factory as well. That's in a preview stage right now. There's another flow on this screen that you see at the bottom, which is exercising some of the capabilities of control flow within a Data Factory. So you could also have these pipelines that do things on if conditions. You see at the bottom is the if condition. What that could do is that could say something along the lines of, if all the values from my data are ones, then I want to send that out to a useSQL script. But if they're not, I just want to go back to the bottom of this if condition and the else condition, and I'm just going to send it out to a web API. Maybe I've written some really cool code in Logic Apps, and I want to call that as a REST endpoint. So I do that through a web application. That's the extensibility of the Azure platform all up, and Azure Data Factory as the orchestration engine for that. What I don't think really shows really well on this slide, though, in the picture, because we're not having any demos in this, we kind of chickened out and just did slides. But what you really get from a Data Factory that doesn't show necessarily here is the operationalizing of this pipeline. You can schedule it. You can have it on a wall clock. You could run it every night at 10 o'clock p.m. You could run it every minute. You could have it kicked off on an event. So when a file drops into your Blob Store container, kick off this pipeline to load my data warehouse. So before I go into that, I just want to kind of sum this up. So I'm going to come out from this lower level understanding of modern data warehouse and Data Factory to go into the customer scenarios. But the bottom line to that is that loading of the data for these analytics comes from the processes of Data Factory to enable all of this. And let's go into some of those thousands of customers we talked about. So here is Reckitt and Kaiser. I actually said it right. So I'm going to say RB for the rest of the day now. So RB is a consumer goods company that is based in England, and they produce health and home products, and I put a few of their products on this slide there, and they also develop products. So they built the modern data warehouse in the cloud. That was their goal. That was something they wanted to do because they felt like that was a way for them to be able to scale that without needing to over provision their servers on-prem, which is the common scenario you have if you're not in the cloud. So the modern data warehouse for them also gave them the ability to bring in new data sources. So now they could scale based on burstiness. And because they're in such a competitive market, it was very important for them to have that sort of pay-as-you-go model or consumption model of the cloud. All right, so what they wanted for their, essentially for their internal customers, their business, was the ability to have all the different groups be able to gain the ability to have better insights in their data, to make better decisions. At the end of the day, when we're building a modern data warehouse, we're doing this for analytics, right? We're doing this to make better decisions that impact the business. So this is a great example, and at the bottom was that point I was trying to make earlier too, where they wanted to start to incorporate third-party data into their models and into their analytics, which they couldn't before because they couldn't meet their SLAs. So that's a fuzzy slide. I apologize for the picture on that. Hopefully if we upload these slides afterwards, you can see it better. But it's essentially the modern data warehouse solution, the same scenario slide that we had earlier. This is what they implemented. I recommend Kaiser, which is to take the raw data as well as SAP and data from S3, so essentially enterprise structured, unstructured data, ingest that via Data Factory, and they did that same scenario we talked about earlier. They stage the data, and then they prep and trade it, and they do that with HD Insight. Then they use Polybase to load Azure Data Warehouse, and the rest is all the goodness of analytics. I don't mean to gloss over the analytics all the time, but we're focusing on the data warehouse here for this session. But, of course, and there's all the SSRS, and there's the Power BI reports, and who knows what else. Maybe they use Looker and, Tableau for all I know. But, the point of it is that for us to enable that, we have to have this engineering of the data enabled. So we do it all in the cloud, and so Rick and Kaiser was able to do that. They chose Azure because they were able to do a POC with us that proved that they could do this in a very small amount of time. They were able to take this entire solution to production in less than 90 days. They were able to orchestrate 5,000 of those EDF activities I showed you on that screen, 5,000 of those run per week to process all this disparate data. And they are now processing, I believe this is probably hasn't been updated since they went live, but over 7 terabytes of data processed through ADF weekly. And if you're familiar with data warehousing, you know that's most likely change data every week, right? So very impressive. I just patted myself on the back, didn't I? Yay. Okay, so LoomDex is my other scenario that I brought to you all today. And so LoomDex is a cutting-edge provider of healthcare analytics. They focus on cardiovascular care. So they are a lift and shift, a migration also customer, and so Rick is going to talk a little bit more specifically about migrations. Migration is a very important aspect of all this. I don't want to gloss over that, but as an ADF PM, our focus in Data Factory is for you to operationalize the integration of data and to be able to continue to build your analytics on a daily, weekly, whatever basis. Okay, so at the bottom is an important part of this. They chose Data Factory and SQL DW because they felt like we were the trusted platform to use to the cloud, and they did a trial with us where they were able to uplift 21 years of data in, I think it was 8 hours. I might have that number on here somewhere. It might be on the next slide, but I believe that's the right number. We'll correct it if I'm wrong. So just to give you some direct words directly out of the mouths of the customer. The top one is from the CTO of LoomDex, which is that Data Factory simplified the integration of data from multiple hybrid sources, the same thing with multiple different sources of data, and we were able to scale to their needs, and now they can use big data analytics. I think that's a big important differentiator too between traditional SQL Server on-prem analytics with SSRS and what you do with a modern data warehouse with all kinds of different sources that are changing, that are unstructured, and that you need to process at scale. The bottom, I believe, is from one of the BI directors at LoomDex, which says that we combine data streams with as many as 8 systems. We have customers that do more than that a lot of times too. And they derive a higher value of detail than they could on competitive systems. So we give them many different grains, right? So when you're in data warehousing, you understand that you want to store data at the lowest grain possible so that you can do analytics that summarize and roll up to many different sort of aggregations that your customer needs. And SQL DW is what enables that. That's not a data factory capability. I mean, we can give you data at any grain you want, but SQL DW is able to support the rollups at all those different grains. So yes, it was 8 hours. They ingested 21 years into Azure through Data Factory in 8 hours. So we've got the scale out capability in Data Factory. You don't need to turn any knobs on it. You use our copy activity. I should say that we do have knobs you can change if you so desire. But we scale that out in the back end, and we have our own microservices that copy data into the Azure Fabric at the fastest speeds possible. They leverage a lot of those control flow capabilities I showed you in that slide earlier, that picture of ADF. They do lookups to go and compare against other systems' data. They do for each. They loop through all these different sources of data that they have. And they use a web activity for their custom code to orchestrate these data transformations that they run daily. And so, yeah, like I said earlier, they migrated their schemas from on-prem SQL to both Azure SQL DB and SQL DW. So not all this has to land in SQL DW. SQL DW, of course, would be the key system that you want to land in for data warehousing, but SQL DB could be some reference data. It could be some lookup data and things of that nature as well. And of course, it's all supported natively in Data Factory. And with that, I'm going to hand off to Rick from our partner Informatica, and he's going to talk about some of the migrations. I don't think you need this, right?
Okay, it's working. All right. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. Really appreciate it. I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to be a little more biased to this side of the room. There are a lot more folks over here. But yeah, my name is Rick Tam Daniels. I'm from Informatica. I'm responsible for the relationship with Microsoft as a partner, and we have a very strategic relationship with Microsoft and invest in a whole bunch of different areas from an integration perspective. So I'll talk to you a little bit about Kelly Services. So Kelly Services is about a $5 billion global staffing and I call it workforce solutions company, where they're basically out there placing employees at different employers, filling their staffing needs, which, as we all know, in today's economy is actually a pretty hard thing to do, and they want to be really good at it. And to be really good at it, you need analytics, right? You need insight into what's happening with your employees. You need to understand what's happening in terms of recruiting, in terms of the customer satisfaction when they're placed there. And Kelly Services has been around for a long time, and they recognized, their head of IT recognized that they had a legacy infrastructure that simply was not allowing them to be competitive from an analytics perspective. And they were at risk, like so many other leaders in industries today, they were at risk of disruption, right? Of small upstarts coming in, being very data-centric, data analytics-centric, and disrupting their business. So they said, you know what, we're gonna get ahead of this. We're gonna take a leap forward. We're gonna modernize our infrastructure. We're gonna go to Azure. We're going to the cloud. We're gonna place our bets there. And one of the biggest reasons why, and we see this a lot with migrations to cloud data warehousing, it's not so much about cost savings or efficiency savings driving, it's really about agility and the time to insight when it comes to leveraging your data. If you think about it, how many people in their existing on-premise warehouse kind of over-provision it just in case they have new use cases, right, that may or may not show up? You just don't do it. It's not economically feasible. It's not cost-effective. So instead what you have is you have customers kind of taking more of a use case based approach to making these moves to the cloud, and because they want to be able to deploy them very quickly, right? In the cloud, in the on-premise, you think about that process to add the new use case. It would probably take you months to get approvals, to get new hardware provision, get more software provision. The cloud, SQL Data Warehouse, in minutes, you can bring a new use case to bear, right? You can bring that data up there very quickly, and you can start working with it, get in the hands of the users. So it's just this orders of magnitude increase in agility that's really driving this move. And so, where's the clicker? Sorry, there it is. Important detail. Okay, so basically, what they were looking to do is to make this move, and what they had in place already was an on-premise Teradata warehouse. They also had some on-premise operational applications as well, and this is one of the aspects of the Informatica technology is that they're able to have this really hybrid execution model, and it's a little bit different than the model that was described earlier. What we do with we call our intelligent cloud services. That's our integration platform as a service, so it's complete as a service capability on Azure. We have this model we call a secure agent, and what that means is all the configuration, all the metadata, all that stuff is managed through a modern web-based interface, visual drag and drop, no code interface. But through the secure agent model, you have very granular control over where the execution that you define actually takes place. So if you want us to do it, we'll do it in our subscription, our part of the cloud. If you want to do it in your subscription, you can run it there, and the data never leaves your subscription context. You can do it on-prem. right? And the on-prem can reach out and not have to open up your firewall, not have to deal with those IT considerations. The sensitive data, you don't want it to leave behind the firewall, it won't with the secure agent model. So in this context, what Kelly was looking to do is saying, well, we want to use the cloud services because we want that platform as a service experience, and we want this hybrid architecture where we're going to replace the warehouse piece, but we still need operational data to flow in. We need change data capture, right? So you leveraging our CDC capabilities to flow data from PeopleSoft into the warehouse as well. So this kind of hybrid model is really going to be their operating model going forward. In terms of, actually, I think I'm missing a slide in here. I went over it by accident. The slide get dropped out? Okay. There was, I had this great slide, but I'm just going to you have to visualize it with me. So basically, the question becomes, well, why Informatica? Why Informatica and Microsoft for this? And certainly data movement, it was an important challenge, right? Connectivity to these source systems, and as many of you know Informatica, we're really good at connecting to things, right? That's kind of been bread and butter for a long time. So when it comes to these existing warehouses, guess what? We know how to connect really deeply to them. But we've also invested very heavily in our connectivity at Azure, right? Using Polybase, parallel loading, that's all part of our connector, push down transformations, those sort of things. But Kelly was looking at not just the data movement piece, they recognized saying, well, as we start to do more and more journeys, how do we start finding the right data that we want to bring to the cloud, right? And they started to look at, well, can I have some kind of discovery capacity or a cataloging capacity that's not just Azure Data Catalog for what's in Azure, but actually the enterprise data catalog. What else is out there to help accelerate this journey? And they said, well, and also once we move this data, well, how do we know if it's good data that we can rely on, right? So how do we deal with data quality? And then we really want to understand a 360 of our employees, a 360 of our customers. How do we get that master data, get that conflicting data rationalized through things like master data management? And so they were looking at ultimately, and the last one was also around GDPR and data protection. So how do we ensure that data we're putting in the cloud isn't putting us at risk? The agility is great, but agility also creates a proliferation of data, and they want to make sure they were containing their risk. And so they were looking at ultimately probably 5 or 6 different companies at the end of the day they'd have to buy different pieces from, and they recognized that Informatica, and this is one of our strengths, is that we actually address every single one of those challenges. But we allow customers to deploy those capabilities incrementally. You don't have to do it all at once, but you can when you need it, and you need it from the platform, the capability is there. So that's the other reason why they said, we really want to bring Informatica on Azure as our solution here. So that's most of what I wanted to highlight. I did want to give the customer a chance to speak as well, so we have actually a nice video from the Kelly Services folks. So do I click this to play? Nope. I got to click on this. Is that touch? All right.
At our core, Kelly Services connects great customers to great people. In order for us to connect the customers to our talent, right, we need to make sure that we can enable solutions that would allow us to do that.
The nature of Kelly's business, staffing in general, is a very cyclical industry. We have to be able to react very quickly to changes in market. So the cloud offers that benefit, and Azure SQL Database in particular has this fantastic scale up and down model.
We are at the very beginning of our cloud journey, and one of the first things we are doing is migrating our warehouse to the cloud using Azure SQL Data Warehouse.
As we started on our data platform modernization, what we realized was we cannot shut down our legacy sources on day one. A hybrid approach was very critical to us. We needed a partner who can support both use cases. And Informatica had solutions. They had a very powerful on-prem solution, and they were betting their future on the cloud.
One of the reasons why we have selected Informatica is not just because they have a point solution. They have a platform of solutions that are going to enable us on that data journey.
When we started looking for data integration, we also wanted to enable our data lake. We also wanted to do change data capture. We wanted to do our master data management. We also wanted to have data governance, data archiving. Very quickly, we were looking at 6 or 7 vendors. When we started looking at Informatica, we found that, okay, all these things could be enabled by one vendor.
So Kelly Services is not a product company, right? We're a people company. We love to put people to work. That's what we do best at. So when you have companies like Informatica or Microsoft who's investing a lot to build this platform so that people like Kelly Services can take advantage of it, that's what gives me a little bit satisfaction, right? That we have picked the right partners.
All right. Okay, cool. Thanks, everyone. So I think that's pretty much it for me. So I'll turn it back over to VJ to wrap us up here.
Ooh, can we watch more videos? VJ, you got some good ones on there.
How big?
What about the, what's that lion?
That's not going forward.
Doing up there?
Let's not autoplay anything on YouTube. Might not work out well.
It's gonna get interesting.
There we go.
So that being said, guys, I mean, I think is your mic? Actually, give it back. That's all right. So that being said, I think we also have several other cases listed here. We'll share this with you.
995 more.
Huh?
995 more?
That's a different presentation that's coming. But these are unique cases that we have here, which you also, we've sort of worked with these industries. We have videos, we have extensive case studies, a lot of information with regards to how they leveraged the modern data warehousing solution path and was successful. So we'll share this with you. These are unique links, and there's a lot of information there that you can go and peruse and get more information. That being said, any questions based on the case studies we saw today, or anything else? We do have some, yes, we do have some success stories of that, and I can share those specific ones with you. Maybe after the session, I'll get your information. I'm happy to share those with you.
Repeat the question.
Sorry, I think go ahead, Nina. From the ABS. Let me go back and look at this. I'm sorry. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but like I said, I mean, I'm more than happy to share that material with you.
So at least the migrations that I've been involved in on the Data Factory side, there have been things, and I know a lot of the stuff has changed on SQL DW recently, so I don't want to necessarily step on any toes here, but there were some things sometimes with APS when the way the data was distributed wasn't always available in ADW. That was always something to be concerned about. So the essentially the refactoring of the keys you use for distribution of data is one thing to always look at when you do that. So it's not necessarily, I think, a one-to-one just kind of uplift. I think you got to look at your models as well. You'll probably see some of that come out. That part won't come out in the case studies. This will be more of the success. I think what you might want to do is you should probably start looking at, I wonder if we have some solution architectures for moving from APS to ADW. That's something that we could look at afterwards for you. You could use, Informatica. You could use ADF. There's actually there is a on-prem SQL to ADW tool. That's a free migration tool. That's not for APS. In case anybody doesn't know, that's Analytical Platform Service System Solution, whatever. The old. Sorry. The migration tool. Yeah, I believe that's just for SQL Server to SQL DW.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a really common question we get. So from a connector standpoint, obviously you have the connectors to talk to the SQL Data Warehouse and any of the other Azure Data Services, and those are up the same common connector framework, right? Those are built on. The big difference is, I think, from a management standpoint, right? When you move to the iPaaS, and right now, functionally, there's a few things that are a little bit different, that are more advanced, and that are probably not going to end up in the cloud version. We can talk about specifics if you're curious, but the vast majority of the capabilities are there now in the iPaaS, and it really comes down to your management profile, right? Because we upgrade that every 3 months, right? You get new updates coming into it. It's something where you don't have to worry about version compatibility, and we're also going to be bringing. It is a microservices architecture, so we're going to start bringing some more of the data services over the next year or two into the iPaaS as well, right? In addition to the patterns that are supported today there.
All right, so thanks for staying so late on Thursday for the session. Appreciate it, and we'll stick around for a few minutes. If you have anything, come on up. Thanks, guys.
See you on the roller coasters.